Hello everybody, welcome to the second episode of Gut Reaction Reviews. I just got done watching The Post, starring Tom Hanks and Meryl Streep, and I have to say it's a phenomenal movie. Before I start the review proper, I want to read a little quote. In the First Amendment, the Founding Fathers gave the free press the protection it must have to fulfill its essential role in our democracy. The press was to serve the governed, not the governors. The government's power to censor the press was abolished so that the press would remain forever free to censure the government. The press was protected so that it could bear the secrets of government and inform the people. Only a free and unrestrained press can effectively expose deception in government. This quote directly ties into the movie that I just watched. It's a very significant part of the movie, but I'm not spoiling anything. This review is really going to focus on the story, the characters, and finally I'm going to give you my impressions of the movie overall, as well as the score. All in all, it's a phenomenal movie, so let's get started on the story. Now, before you ask, yeah, I'm kind of in character. Mostly my outfit was what I wore to work, but I added the tie because it just felt appropriate, and the newspaper boy hat, that happened by accident, but I'll just go with it. So the characters in this movie are absolutely fantastic. Kay Graham, the character that Meryl Streep plays, comes across as this really apprehensive protagonist. She is put into very interesting situations, and a lot of the times you really do get the feeling that she's really conflicted in what to do. At the end of the movie, she really comes into her own. She finally realizes that this legacy that has been left to her, the Washington Post, while it has been attributed as her father's company or her husband's company, is no longer theirs. It's her legacy. She has been a part of this newspaper for her entire life. So she really takes ownership at the end, and that's a very significant moment. As I was mentioning earlier, there's a very strong feminist message in this movie. There are quite a few very poignant scenes where we really do see how women were treated back in the 70s and the 60s, sort of like second-class citizens. Their opinions didn't matter, they were often overlooked, they were berated, they were treated like less than men. Very unfortunate but true. There is one pivotal scene that involves Tom Hanks' character, Ben Bradley, where he's speaking with his wife, and his wife has absolutely beautiful lines where she says, well, you don't really understand what Kay is going through. Well, yes, you can go ahead and do this controversial thing, and yes, there may be a little bit of a fallout to you, but at the end of the day, the person who will be most affected is Kay Graham, this woman who owns the Washington Post. She has everything to lose. Whereas Ben Bradley, because he's a man and because he's naturally controversial, no matter what happens, he'll be okay. It really makes you think, and it helps the story arc of Tom Hanks' character that all kind of ties in at the end, where he finally realizes, yes, I'm pushing the envelope, but really I'm not the one who has anything to lose. Other characters, I'm blanking on the name of the actor, but the main character in Better Call Saul, that actor plays a very important supporting character who is actually the one who finds the source of the story that the whole movie is based on. The way he finds the source is really well thought out and very well plotted out. There are certain moments where it's just very quick 2-3 minute scenes where that character is running around trying to connecting the dots and trying to find the person who's behind all these leaks that are happening. And when he finally does, it's a very, very quiet but very intense moment. All in all, I'd say that the characters sell the movie in more ways than one. As I mentioned earlier, the story by itself could be a little boring, could be a little tame, but the characters really elevate it to another level. Finally, let's go with my final impressions and my score. So overall, the movie is absolutely fantastic. A few things I want to mention is that the directing, it's directed by Steven Spielberg, is absolutely phenomenal. There are moments where we pan over to the buildings of the Washington Post and the New York Times, or maybe the Supreme Court, and every single building is really given their own little particular moment, and you really feel the historical significance of these buildings. While maybe nowadays we may pass buildings and really not give them a second thought, it's interesting to think all the history behind them, everything that those walls have seen, everything that those walls have experienced. I would describe this movie as intensely quiet. It's not very bombastic, it's not the typical action blockbuster. It's a very quiet movie, very deliberately paced. But there are certain moments where you really catch yourself just being completely engrossed with what's going on the screen. This I would attribute to editing, to the directing, to the acting. All in all, it's an absolutely fantastic movie. The score is, the score, I don't usually listen to scores very actively when I'm in a movie, but this score in this movie was absolutely perfect when it came to really elevating scenes and when it came to pointing out certain things. If I had one complaint about it, is that there are a few moments where I think information is presented on the screen, but it happens so quickly that you are able to miss it. All in all, I would score this movie an 8.5 out of 10. Absolutely recommended to go see it, especially if you're into political thrillers, if you're into conspiracy stuff, if you're into politics in general, you'll love this movie. Thanks so much for joining me on my second review here on my YouTube channel. I really appreciate you coming in here with me. If you like what you see, subscribe, like. If not, hey, thanks for joining anyways. 100% recommend the post. Entirely worth your time. Have a good night. We'll see you here next week.